you listening?
Welcome to the Craic'n Coachin podcast, episode number 20, with your hosts Emmett and Donal. Donal, what's happening, my friend? How are we, mate?
All good, brother. All good. I think I am unfortunately picking up a wee bit of flu with the change in weather in Ireland. So usually have a couple of wee telltale signs for me. One of them's definitely getting a bit of AIDS on the lip there. Wee tiny bit of a cold sore. So unfortunate, but we're still here.
So the heat wave's gone then?
Yeah, you know yourself, you always get that wee stint like on the back end of September. I always remember walking home from school up into like Poglass, and I was sweating my balls off in my uniform. So hoping for at last we, spirited stint of sun, and then we're into the deep depths of winter in Ireland. The winter hour comes out, or I start to just consume 7,000 calories every day and call the bulk.
Aye. That's me, mate. Nah, it feels like it's been winter, and it feels like it's been winter in Australia for the longest time. It's been cold for a while. It is winter, but it should be coming into the better weather very soon. Hopefully, come September, it usually picks up, and then by January, it's absolutely boiling. But it's been cold for ages. You've
clearly climatised that as well. Was the first winter, were you just like, I can't believe this is what they call winter?
No, the first winter I was the opposite. I was like, this is the coldest thing I've ever experienced.
Really?
Seriously. Yeah, because I think it was the contrast as well. Because I got so used to it being warm. I also had a preconceived idea that it doesn't get cold. And the contrast between the heat and then the cold. Because when it's pretty cold, and I was like, surely it doesn't get this cold in Ireland. I was definitely a bit delusional, but the first winter hit me, I was like, oh, fuck me, this is freezing. Because it's really, really fresh in the morning, but then it picks up and it becomes nice sort of mid-morning, early afternoon time. And then it actually heats up, I find, a bit more in the evening. So, yeah, for that first winter, got me by the balls,
Literal. We shriveled up once.
Yeah, they're non-existent, to be honest.
I can imagine. How's your week been, mate? I seen you picked up a wee bit of an injury there.
So it did. It done me the stupidest error ever. It was so self-inflicted and so avoidable, completely in my control. But it's pretty much gone now. So I thought I'd absolutely mangled my wrist in the gym on a belt squat machine, and I had to work around that for the past week. I did fear the worst and thought I'd broken something, and my first point was just of panicking how much I maybe set myself back with an injury like that, because I was on such a good run. But thankfully, mate, I feel I can go and train normally tomorrow after a week, and it was just because didn't do anything stupid this week and was patient and worked around the injury. Was back on the cuffs, etc. On my upper session on Thursday.
Clavicle press.
Felt like 2021 maybe is when I was went into a bit of a phase where I got in the deep end of that a bit too much. But I definitely don't enjoy training like that. Just reminds me.
The optimal cuff phase.
Yeah, I don't like training that way, and it's such an awkward setup and stuff. But God bless the Cybex Bravo, because I was glued to it, and it's just the best cable stack ever, so adjustable, and I was able to train my entire upper body on it. But mate, I'll talk to you a bit about the injury. Enough? Depends what you're doing, I suppose. It's heavy enough for what I was doing, and I'm not particularly strong anyway, which we're going to talk about as a topic today. But I don't think it's a really light stack. Depends what you're doing, I suppose. For me, pressing and flies and stuff is fine.
Single arm lat pull down I was running at one point, and I think it was a wee bit light on it, but
not for me.
No, this is back whenever I was
don't have that issue.
Full stacking the lat pull down with no lats.
Been there, we've all been there.
Dun, dun, dun.
But also, mate, like the injury itself, as I said, it was avoidable. I went to another gym called One Gym, which I used to train at before I moved gym to the gym that's recently been firebombed. But I'd never ran the belt squat RDL. I'd always just done a barbell RDL. But because it's in a program, there's an Arsenal belt squat RDL, so I was like, I'm gonna give that a go. Made the mistake of loading up the machine as a working set before, like, you know, if you're doing an RDL on a belt squat, you can't just unrack it yourself by lifting off the bar. You have to push the handle that you hold on to actually do a belt squat. Yeah, so I went into the machine, had loaded it up with 5 plates aside, and realised that I had to push the lever out, but like the plates are very high up and awkward on the belt squat RDL, the Arsenal one. So I was like, I'm just going to push this out here, and unrack it, but then it was going to make a big massive noise and slam, so I tried to catch it almost, and as I tried to catch it with my hand, my wrist got trapped in between where the lever and where the lever sort of, you know, latches onto. So my hand just took the entire the impact of all of the load that was on the machine, and mate, it was like the sorest thing I've ever experienced. Fell to a heap, like I was just holding my hand and it was like all floppy. I was like, I've completely fucked this. No one was really in the gym, it was quiet, so no one even seen me. Probably for the best at the time, like. And then I went up to the desk, got iced, and then me and Olivia went to A&E, and they told me it wasn't broke, and I was like so relieved. That's all I needed to hear. You know, I hadn't broke anything. It was just like deep tissue bruising and bone bruising, a bit of bone bruising. So, like, that's manageable, and like you can work around that. So, all I done was, worked around it this week. Took Monday, Tuesday off. Wednesday, trained legs like at full capacity pretty much. There's no issues training legs. I actually took a few progressions as well, which was great. And then Thursday is a normal rest day, so just rested. And then Friday, Saturday, done upper. It was a proper workaround of a session, with the cuffs and stuff. And then Saturday done legs again and just didn't do a belt squat RDL. I done a squat press instead. Like gripping onto it would have been too sore anyway, or awkward on the wrist. So being able to do it, I was just like, I'll just do a leg press because I love a Cybex squat press anyway. And then I actually feel like by tomorrow I'll be completely fine again, like more or less able to train. So happy days. And that's just like, when you sort of get any sort of injuries, my best advice is just don't try and be a hero, and don't do anything stupid, and find a way to work around it, because you can always do something and you can always make progress in some way. Like if I had been the worst case scenario, I would have still been able to work around it and made some progress, and maybe done things where I wasn't able to grip onto using cuffs and stuff for a while, and just double down on legs on the lower body and made progress there. But thankfully, mate, it wasn't as bad as I first feared.
Good. It's not a bad thing at all. Yeah. I think it is just managing injuries the hardest part, and I always say it to people whenever they do get injured, is that frustration is going to be the hardest thing to deal with here. It isn't the fact that you have to work around things. Like you're more than smart enough, you're more than patient enough, but the frustration just really gets to you sometimes, doesn't it? Especially when you can't train within capacity, or you were at like a pinnacle point as well where everything was going so well.
Yeah, it was funny because AJ just like gave me my feedback for the week, and it was all positive, and it was like this is where you're going to start really making really good progress now that you're like adapted to that gym environment and stuff. And then I have to message him being like, I think I fucked it here, bro. And then it was just, you do think the worst case in your head, but it wasn't that. It was okay. That's good again. So I'm pleased, mate. That's
the bodybuilding career could have been cut short.
Yeah, before they even got going. But nah, I'm so glad, and yeah, it made me actually have a bit more gratitude, towards getting to go in and train at full capacity and like not taking that for granted. So now I'm just gonna not be so stupid, and not be lazy. And if I have to strip a machine to stop myself getting injured, I will do so. Like,
Yeah, you had a big dumb bitch moment there, like.
yeah, it was just like, fuck, stripping all this weight off and putting it back on again. I'm just gonna push it, and it'll unrack, and then I'll go into the machine the exercise quickly, and then I end up didn't get to do the exercise. So don't make that mistake.
So it was not a +1 in your logbook?
Certainly not, mate.
No.
Unfortunately.
It was like a -1.
Do you want to segue that nicely into this week's topic, or mate,
Yeah.
I haven't even asked you how your own week was. Just want to get stuck straight in.
I just had a pretty monotonous week. I'm very, very busy at the minute, to be honest. And just trying to navigate that. I think a lot of people think that, when shit gets busy, you just have to find that balance, blah, blah. It's like, no, you don't. It's an extreme. You just have to bury the head and get stuck into it. Life's about extremes, not balance.
Yeah, I thought you were busy, mate. I thought you were.
I know.
Because
I've been terrible to get a hold of.
That's it, mate. You're still here. You're still showing up. And
Missed the pod.
today we'll have
not missed the pod.
Today we have a good topic off the back of last week's podcast. It went down well with Nick Love.
Yes. And Nicholas
Something
Love.
I actually wanted to speak to Nick about, because I know he's big on, but we didn't actually get to because the conversation just went where it went. But this week we're going to speak about progressive overload, the logbook in particular, and the pros and cons, and weighing up whether you should, or there's merit in disregarding the logbook completely.
Log it or lose it, bro.
What's your thoughts on this?
I think as maybe we take a look at this here from different aspects, is probably our best bet, and see who the type of person that's actually going to benefit and who's actually going to, not benefit. From a coaching aspect.
Have you always logbook? Have you ever moved away from the logbook?
Never ever. I've always had the logbook there. Even now, with my training being very different than what it was within bodybuilding, there has to be some sort of data to measure there to make sure I am making progress.
Yeah, like personally, I didn't start with a logbook because I didn't start with structure. I was just like getting in, winging it, and doing whatever I kind of felt like it with a somewhat structure. But then once I started logging my training and having that solidified structure, I haven't moved away from it since. So it's probably been about 5-6 years potentially now of logging more or less every session. It's structured, but then within my own training plan, obviously, like not including holidays or when I was home. There was no point really tracking that. Just training with good intensity and good accuracy. But I suppose like the caveat to it all is, if you are training with intensity, training with accuracy, you're going to get mechanical tension, which is what drives muscle growth. So by that logic, you don't really need the logbook. So why do we use it?
See, I've heard some fucking ridiculous arguments for not having a logbook over my years. One of them that definitely stands out was like, if you can't remember what you were lifting last week, then you clearly don't care enough about the gym. It's like, bro, I can't even remember what happened yesterday. Never mind what specific rep range and weight I lifted on every single machine throughout a 5-day training block. Like, if you've got 10 exercises per day, or even less, I'd say it's 10 just for a round number, like it's 50 exercises to remember. Like, I know talking to these people as well, they're brain dead as fuck. It's like, you don't actually remember what you were lifting last week, buddy, or what reps you got. Or even better, to like go into log booking properly, like it's not just the reps and the numbers, like you can leave yourself comments as well.
I like doing that too. A bit of like biofeedback is how I felt good, or if you just got the rep and stuff as well. I like that. I actually like that in particular. If you just got the final rep, so then next week if you got it as a bit cleaner, a bit tighter, then that's actually it's an improvement on the previous week.
Even the setting
for me
as well for the machine.
Yeah, exactly. Noting those things are important as well. Like what you said is so true, but I'd be the same. Like you would have an ish idea, especially on bigger movements, maybe where you've got like a certain amount of plates per side. But on all the small movements and stuff, for me, it would be the inconvenience of not being able to of having to trial and error, or like not knowing what your working weight's going to be for a specific rep range. So it's a lot of faffing around. It's just for me, it's just like the efficiency of knowing what sort of weight I lifted, and then if you're just able to remove the emotional attachment to the logbook, I think then you're gonna be okay. Like it's the reason that the logbook can be a detriment to people is when it's like progress at all costs to beat the logbook, and then their execution shit. So they're not actually creating more stimulus. Their training just like progressively getting worse over time. If that's the case, you can move away from the logbook, reset the load. But like, if you understand what the logbook is there to do, which is just it's there as a tool, it's there to guide your training, and it's like a diagnostic tool. So then, if you can go into each session knowing what you lifted, and then you're using that as feedback, you're maybe adding a little bit more weight, and you're matching reps. You're building muscle. You're on the way to make progression. I think it's just like the emotional side of it, and just having the maturity to not get so upset if you don't get a +1 or you don't add load that week. That's not how progressive overload building muscle works anyway. It's a slower process than that. So I suppose like bodybuilding in particular I'm talking about is like a game of patience anyway. So it's just about being patient, and also knowing you're not going to take a progression on the logbook every single week, but that's fine. Like I don't get up in arms about that, but I log my training sessions so that they know what I'm aiming towards as well. And like there's definitely a thing to be said for like we're humans as well, so and we're emotional, so like and we want to have something to strive towards. And like if you're just going off feel and you're not tracking anything, you can definitely trick yourself or kid yourself into training and not really train as hard. Like if you have it there in numbers and you lift a certain weight, then you're going to you have that in you. I think you're more likely to push a bit harder to your full capabilities, because a lot of people don't know where that is, and if they didn't logbook, they probably are never really going to push themselves because they don't have anything to aim towards.
Yeah, I always used to say this when I was younger, especially whenever, there was arguments about research and stuff coming out. It's like the one thing that we can't dictate is human emotion. As much as like this is the most optimal approach, if somebody just doesn't like it, then they're not going to get the most out of it. And like you always say, the most consistent approach is going to be the one that people enjoy.
Yeah, and like that's another thing. People might start resenting their training if they're just going in to beat themselves up and try and like force progressions and bully the weight. And I think it's okay to step away from logbook for a while if that's the case, and once execution starts getting sloppy, you can reset the load. But for me, like enjoyment is definitely key. I don't enjoy my training less because of a bit of pressure on myself to uphold standards and make like progressions. So I think if you're really not enjoying it, you can step away from for a period of time and see if it works for you, I suppose. But for me personally, like I haven't done that, and I don't think it's a detriment to enjoyment for me. It's just like
I think that training's supposed to be I know training's supposed to be uncomfortable, and I think there's two parties to this here and two factors, isn't there? There's your Nick Goffs that maybe argue about like having a logbook or not having a logbook. Like there's the people that are just, that are so far, they're just so much more experienced than you. And then you've got the same people, and I've said this for a long time, a lot of the bodybuilding community is like Chinese whispers. It's like you hear this one massive entity talk about something, and then you take what you want from it depending on your emotional status and where things are. So, you know, JP says fucking you have to make progress on every single session, and it's like you take out there for granted, and it has to happen every single session. It's like, you're not JP. You know, no one's JP. No one's Nick Love. You know, these people come around and they're the one-of-ones, and you have to realise that everything they say isn't gospel. That, you know, training before social media was not this. You got to read fucking magazines, and most of the time, the people that were a lot bigger than you didn't really have much to say. They just looked bigger. You know what I mean? Arnie wasn't giving out fucking educational advice. Well, he was actually. He was talking about the pump feeling better than sex. You know, maybe that's the thing we should go back to. You know, just enjoying training that much.
And I do, and like again, you get a pump, you make progress. It's amazing. That's the enjoyment for me comes from that, and then the progress is enjoyment as well. It's enjoyable seeing the progress. It's enjoyable pushing yourself to your limits. Do you need a logbook to do that? No, but there's definitely a
merit.
place for it to. Yeah, there's definitely merit in it, and like again, what's not measured can't be managed. So if you're not measuring these things, it's something that's you can't really manage to the degree if you do measure it. For me, it just comes down to emotional maturity and being able to have the emotional maturity to not get so like bogged down to it. It's the same way as for me. I was compared to like if you stop weighing yourself because you're attached to the scales. You know, like that's important data there as well. It's just about seeing that as a data point and then cracking on.
Yeah, I think people that step away from these points of data are the ones that are most afraid of, because they're uncomfortable. Like, you'd step in the scales if you knew the scales are going the way that you wanted them to go, because it would give you a positive. Do you know what I mean? So it's probably the same with the logbook for most people. It's like, you know that you're not willing to push into uncomfort and actually go to new places with it. Like, I gamified the logbook for such a long time. Same again with the scales. Whenever I was in like certain points of bodybuilding, with diets, with push-ups, like I gamified everything. Those numbers were there for me to take, and you know, I wouldn't let it ruin my day. And I just don't get that either. I've never gotten that. Like, I've never slopped about or thought, fuck me, my day's ruined because I didn't get a +1 rep or I didn't do this. It's like, I know that so many people are going to get wound up with me saying this here so often these days, but it's just not that deep. It really isn't. Do you know what I mean? You still have a very fruitful life.
Yeah. It's not that deep though, and like you can always go in next week, and that's the beauty of it. You can go in next week and try and make that improvement. If you don't manage to that week, it just means you haven't made the adaptations yet. Like, as we say, like we've spoken about before, the logbook is like adding more weight is not how you add muscle. You build more muscle, and then you're able to add more weight. So it works the other way around. So it's just like you're giving yourself feedback as to whether you're moving in the direction you would like to in terms of building more muscle. Yeah, I can't see myself stepping away from it anytime soon, to be fair.
No, I love, and to see as well, like, people don't actually look at it from a logical stance either. You know, let's say, like, what was your last session of it? My sessions are a wee bit iffy at the minute.
Legs on Saturday.
Many exercises. 7.
8.
7. 8. Ooh.
8.
Ooh. Okay, so if Emmett has 8 exercises, and let's say his first ones are like predecessor exercises, they're ones that are actually getting him into his main. So maybe your first 2 are like limb ones, like joint ones, like a leg extension, or what are they? Adductor?
Abs, adductor, calf. First 3.
Okay, great. And then fourth one's probably one of your bigger lifts, maybe.
Seated hamstring curl, and then into my glute drive, and then my hip hinge, and then I have a split squat, and then a single leg extension.
Yes, I actually did this session with you. It was a good session. I like that. But people aren't taking into account the fact that you've got 5 exercises there before you go into your quote unquote meat and potatoes. You know, you hit your hinge. Your hinge is probably one of the things that you do want to see increase every single time. So let's say you take progressions on them 5 other exercises prior to getting into your hinge, and you tax yourself a wee bit more. If in the space of a year you only see that hinge go up by 20 kilo, is that a bad thing? If all 5 exercises prior to it were up by, let's say, 50 kilo. Do you know what I mean? You have to understand that there's only a certain amount that you can actually get from your program, depending on what it's set up as well. And those exercises that are so much later in the session are not going to progress anywhere near as well. But sometimes that's not a bad thing either, because if you were to stick that hip hinge in first, you end up doing the same. It'd be the same situation, but like there's a lot of exercises that you're not going to get anything from there. You know, you can push an adductor really, really hard and not be absolutely fried. You can push a leg extension. You can push your abs really hard, and again, central nervous system is fried. Like programming that into the back end of the session where maybe you can't put as much effort into it is probably the better thing to do.
100%. That comes down to, I suppose, smart exercise sequence as well. Like every single exercise, every single set you perform will then accrue more fatigue. So you're going into each subsequent set with more fatigue present, which is going to reduce your ability to be able to produce as much force. So like that hip hinge towards the end, probably limiting load capacity on it, reducing the risk of injury could be one thing, but also like just making sure that the net positive of the session as a whole is like is moving in the right direction, because as you said, like when hip hinge goes first, everything else will just plummet after it, and then when you look across a year, your hip hinge might improve, but maybe the rest of the stuff aren't. So yeah, there's definitely a case for having those meat and potato exercises towards the back end for that reason.
I think that's a maturity thing as well, and also just a progression standpoint of you just getting better as a lifter too, and realising that, you know, you only have so much to give in a session too. And I know that there from like years of doing the big 3 alongside my actual bodybuilding training, where I was barbell squatting, I was benching, I was deadlifting. Like those exercises were like first and second in my program for a very long time. And I actually remember the day hitting like my heaviest deadlift and just thinking to myself afterwards, being like, I don't have anything to give here after this session. It was like 235, 240 first 3, and I just remember sitting there for near 20 minutes being like, I don't think I can actually go into the rest of the session.
Like, that's like, it's a thing like psychologically there as well. Like you would rather almost bury yourself at the end than at the start when you still have like so much more to do. Like imagine doing a hip hinge and you're like, fuck me, I still have leg curls, a leg extension, a split squat, a leg press, whatever else to do here. Like,
be horrible.
You're almost beating yourself out, and that can definitely remove some enjoyment too. But yeah, that's probably a different story altogether. But then that's where the logbook can come up trumps, because if you're sequencing these things in that specific order each time, you know, the variables are staying the same. So when you are taking progressions, it's legit because it's placed in the same time within that session in terms of like how many exercises you've done prior.
Yeah. What I was going to say at the sort of start of this topic is we should probably look at it from a scope of you know, different aspects of different people. So of course, as coaches ourselves, having that logbook in place for a client is phenomenal because it's data that we can actually measure, and it's also data that we can see a lot from for a person. Same with like other data that we get, scale weight, you know, even rest and heart rate at times too can be a big insight into seeing how someone is actually feeling, or their health, or if their body's run down. And you know, even with one fit as well, we're one fit glazing again, folks. Being able to see the rating of sessions as well is huge. even if that progression is still moving forward, to see someone get into a session and just not enjoy it, it's like, okay, right, well, there's definitely something going wrong here. And the guys as well that do a good job of sending across their training clips, to be honest, to highlight one of them, and I know you'll probably listen to this here at some point, Kieran Foster, one of my clients, and he is phenomenal at sending across training clips, sending across also like the progression that he does take, and even how he's feeling as well. And he is somebody that gets the most out of his training, and he's probably somebody that is making some of the biggest progressions I've ever seen in a client, because he understands the benefit to actually doing this. Oh,
Big up Kieran, I know he listens as well. And I see him almost on a daily basis posting his training, and he's his progression as well. And like again, he's logging sessions that works for him because he's getting in with clear targets. So I'm sure if you said to him he wasn't a log of sessions or whatever, then he probably wouldn't get as much enjoyment out of it. I suppose it is person dependent. If you had someone that hated logging their training, how would you approach that? What would you say to them?
I think you just have to make it clear as well as a coach. There's only so much that you can actually do, and that you can't actually there's no magic wand. There isn't something like spectacular you can do in these situations. You just explain to the person that I think it's going to be much more beneficial for you to be able to log it and actually see the data. This goes for the scales as well, just sort of like you mentioned, because I've had situations like that. But if you feel like that it's in your best interest right now to pull away from that there for the time being, it's completely fine. I would just like to say that there has to be some sort of point of conflict here where we have to go back to it or at least check in on it to see what's actually happening. Otherwise, we have no measurable status at all here to see if you're actually progressing.
Yeah, I suppose the only other thing I'm thinking you could maybe do is if you're recording your sets, then you'd have to record every set, which you don't be setting up every single set and recording them to see what you've lifted, but maybe on your main list if you do that. And then your isolation exercises, if you're not maybe logging them as closely or you're changing up depending on what you feel, I don't think that's necessarily the worst thing in the world. Say for example, 1 week I do a dumbbell preacher curl, a single arm, and then the following week I do it on a machine, based on feel, based on availability. That's not the worst thing in the world either, I don't think. But yeah,
do you
I still think
that
overall,
if you were to ditch the logbook for a year, you would make as much progress as you're making right now?
nah, I don't think so, because there'd be just, I don't know, it would create a bit of uncertainty, I think, for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's another thing too. Like I was saying about that guy, it was like, you can't remember what you lifted last week. No, I can't.
No, I wouldn't as well. Fuck me, I forget, mate. Ask my missus how much I forget stuff. Um,
Yeah.
I know I wouldn't. I wouldn't trust myself to. That's another reason why I actually record sets sometimes as well, to remember how many reps I got.
Oh man, I just
Yeah.
music on, let's go, lift, get out, and
'Cause
then
you're in
I
the
remember
set.
during prep and being like, "Man, did you get?" I'm like, "Don't know, I need to go back and count it on the video here."
Yeah, because you're in the set as well. That's a beauty of actually recording your training, as well. And again, that's another form of data, like how you're actually performing it. So if you marry them two together, like you're recording sets, and you're seeing how the exercise is moving, and you're also putting it in your logbook, and you're able to measure the data as well. And if the exercise is looking good, form's looking good, and the logbook is progressing over time, that was a good thing. I mean, if you're not using a logbook, that should be happening anyway, but it's just harder to gauge, I think, harder to manage.
I think that's a good concept too that probably no one talks about, and by the sounds of it, you do exactly what I do. Is that you probably just check your log, you check the weight, you work up to it, you know what you got last week, you hit record, and most of the time I actually don't count. I just give everything I possibly can, because for me it's not even a case anymore of I might not hit that rep range. I just always think in my head that I have so much more to give to this exercise than I'll ever understand. And if I
Yeah.
just, lock in right now, and go hell to leather, I'm always going to beat the rep range. I don't know how many by, and I'm going to make sure that every single set and rep is as effective as possible. And most of the time, I do. I come at the other end with either matching reps or plus a couple. Great.
Yeah. Like another thing on this topic as well was I actually got feedback this week on my check-in regarding forcing the issue a bit more in terms of adding a bit more load rather than and like in a way I suppose chasing a bit more load and using that as a performance metric as a way of progressing every week, so almost like a micro loading on machines until the point where you've got maybe like a respectable amount of weight on the machine, because that was what AJ was speaking to me about as well. It's like execution's very good, accuracy's really good, intent is there, but it's like we just love to see more plates on this machine. I'm like, fucking, you're telling me, I would love that myself, but that's maybe again in my head. Sometimes I'm maybe not always adding weight, or maybe I'm waiting until I get to the top of the rep range. It's like if you're adding a small amount of load every week, execution's not really changing. You're always fighting this battle, I suppose, with, and when you are adding load, maybe it gets a little bit untidier, but then you just tidy it up the following week. Then make that load move easy, move like butter, and then you can keep moving and progressing that way. So I am like taking this with this week's check-in. I am taking that on board, and I'm going to go in with a bit more assertiveness. Like I have been really, really, focused on
conservative,
making sure every rep is accurate, making sure I'm not taking 50-50 reps and reps that aren't there in the tank. But I think I'm like so focused on like control, accuracy, that maybe sometimes that's taken away from my ability to actually be a bit more aggressive and assertive on like especially like the concentric portions of reps. Because I don't want to I don't want the reps to be untidy, but like there has to be a bit of give and take there as well.
I think you're also at a point right now where it's actually going to be really hard for you to actually do that. Like it's going to drive new adaptation, which I'm definitely for. I can understand where AJ's coming from with it, and also if we always use the principles that we currently have in place, there's only so much progress we can actually make, because you have all these rules set in your head of being like, I need to hit the top of the rep range, I can only move up by this certain amount of weight, it can't be outside of this tempo, and it's like, okay, well, if we did the maths, you can only add realistically let's say you add 2.5 kilo every time you actually progress. It takes you 2 weeks to progress. You know what I mean? Like you're realistically only going to add, if even 20 kilo to an exercise. When on the other side of it, they actually look at it from a logical standpoint, how you move things and how strong you actually are. You could probably take a massive jump. And to give a bit of perspective on this, like I've brought the barbell RDL back into my program, and where it is right now comparatively to where it was, I started at 120 kilo, and I've taken 10 kilo increments and increases every single week since then, which is so far outside of what we would call optimal, because you'd be like, don't know, that's really strange. But I also know where I was with that exercise and know where I want to be with it, and if I want to gain some new ground, then it means doing things that I've never done before. So like 3 weeks deep, I'm already at 150, and I got 8 reps, so I plan on going to 160 next week. Fuck it. The thing that's going to happen is it's going to stall.
Yeah, the thing is, mate, like to achieve things you haven't achieved before, you need to be willing to do things you haven't done before, and that applies to your training as well. So I think, yeah, definitely case as well for certain exercises, like especially you're talking about your hip hinge there in particular, like where like grip and rip and not thinking too much is a good thing. I definitely need to take maybe a bit of a leaf from your book on that end as well, and I'm going to.
Yeah, another massive thing that I've definitely gotten not rid of, but I've thought less about, mainly because, of course, I talked about like getting a new coach and stuff like that, and the direction of my training's changed into more like learning more about S&C, athletic sort of approaches, and trying to see getting rid of what I had set as a tempo was actually really, really difficult. Like I can almost see it where, I'm watching the video back of my RDL and I'm like, fuck, it's still so tidy, even though I went into it and felt like, oh, that was nowhere near as good or stimulating as my like previous sets on this here, like a year back. and then I look at it and I'm like, that still looks really, really good. So that's where I'm coming from as well. Like, you have all these things set in place that you don't even realize, or mechanisms, and your body adapts to, that you, even if you do go in and like and fucking send it, you actually have all these wee like injury prevention mechanisms that are there, that your body's or your brain's just like rooted in so deeply. Like, you'll not go for those reps that are fucked. Like, it's going to be very hard to reteach yourself to actually go for them.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Where, from an aspect of like somebody that like a first timer or a beginner, like, I didn't use a logbook at the very start, and I still made quite a lot of progress just getting in off of intensity. And also, to go back on what that guy said of being like, can't believe you can't remember what you lifted last week, I tried to remember as much as possible. I also had friends around me that were quite good at this, and whenever I trained with people back whenever I first started, it was just out of pure like competition that I did better every single week, because I seen what they were lifting and they seen what I was lifting, and then we just constantly tried to one up each other. So even though there was no logbook in place, there was a log of that. It was very like the whole diamond gym situation.
Familiarize me on that.
Diamond gym, brother. There's a guy called Unk, funny enough. But pretty much Diamond Gym's just a new fitness, sort of fitness influencers, but they're not even. They're just sort of trying to bring back like hard training. Their concept behind it all is just getting in and pushing as hard as possible. Their form is questionable, and their thought process behind the gym is questionable. But they just have this set of rules, and this set of rules makes the gym twice as difficult, which is cool, because they're bringing in like these like snowflake fitness influencers that they just go in and everyone just goes off the back of what Unk says, because Unk wants to train heavy or hard. But it's like, oh man, you just need to watch the videos. Like, he'll be like, right, we're gonna do 3 sets of 150 lat pullovers before we start our deadlifts. This is the weight. No one else is allowed to change the weight. Everyone has to do the weight. But Unk's like 300 £. Unk's huge.
So it's not a level playing field then.
No, he just sends people in. But then there's loads of rules to be like, so in an altercation, you wouldn't close your eyes. So you had to keep your eyes open throughout the whole set. You can't just like close them and try and get through it. It isn't a fashion show, so you're not allowed to wear shorts, tank tops, jewellery. You're not allowed to have water while you're doing it. You're not allowed to talk back. And if you break any of these rules while in the set, you have to pair it up with like push-ups. So you'll get a certain amount of push-ups for every rule you've broke, in between every single exercise that you're actually doing.
Sounds like a boot camp or something.
Seems like a crack. Looks like hard work. So I think that's sort of what they're trying to push for. But to use that as an example, you know, they don't have a logbook, but what they do have is the log of who lifted what last, and they just know they need to beat each other. So there's something to be said about that. That's quite interesting. That's pretty cool to have that system of accountability around you as well. Maybe the logbook isn't always everything. Maybe you just need somebody that's going to challenge you, call you a wee bitch.
I think it's
like
definitely
AJ.
good. Like, definitely think it's good to have competition and like striving with other people to push yourself. But I also think that's probably an example for me where I think load isn't everything as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, load is again, it's also a tool. It's relative to how much you can lift with good form as well. Like, when it's about building muscle. So like, yes, try and push the load, try and push the envelope a little bit, and push yourself as to what you can do. Logbook can help you strive towards that. But I also think like that sort of approach and sort of like just is maybe going to take away from good quality training. Like,
No, it
especially
is.
if you
It's
can't hydrate.
definitely going to like. No, not to use them as to be like, this is what you should do, but I do remember having that camaraderie whenever I first started the gym, of having like training partners that pushed me quite hard, and that's the only time I can remember not having a logbook. And as I've grown a bit older, of course, and just not being able to pair up times with people, etc. Like the last time that I actually had somebody to sort of fight against was probably like Finn during prep, but it got to a point where, like, you know, Finn is still, I think he was 15 kilo lighter than me, so it was expected that I was going to lift more anyway. And then the last time I can actually remember even just having one of those situations where someone else lifted something and I wanted to lift the same was me and you in the dock that day. That was actually the leg press. And I was like, fuck, it's been so long since I've actually just trained straight legs. I was like, but I want to make sure that I can fucking do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's you certainly could as well, but for me, I don't get like too bogged down with that.
No,
Like,
but it's a nice bit of like, it's a nice bit of challenge,
it is, but
isn't it?
like
Competitiveness.
I also know to stay in my own lane as well. In certain areas, like if you were lifting like something outrageous that I know I can never lift, I'm not going to lift that just because you have, and I'm going to try and prove a point for me ego as well. Like, I'm going to lift what I know that I can lift with good form is still pushing me. Do you know what I mean? Like, do I think it's
I'm
about
attacking
marrying
like
the
the good coach and the good athlete here. He's a bullshit and cunt. I've seen him trying to lift that hammer strength belt squat hinge.
That's actually true, but then again, that's because I'd never done it before. In fairness, so I didn't know I didn't know, and then again, that's pro logbook. I didn't know where my limit was there really, so I definitely overshot the load just. So yeah, that's actually a good example. So, but marrying them both together, I think like the intensity, the accuracy, the striving to add more load, make progressions, but keeping execution at the forefront of your mind, and mechanical tension as well.
It's to stay true to yourself too, isn't it? Like, you're saying it too. Like, if you aren't sure of what you've even lifted in the previous week, and if you did come away from the logbook for a year, you wouldn't be sure that you are actually making progress. It's just staying true to the process of like, okay, well, this is something that even though weight isn't an indicator that weight should be the indicator that there's more muscle there, and weight isn't the sole indicator that you are growing, it's a fucking good one. Same again with the scale weight. It's like, if you're getting lighter, you're probably getting leaner if you're doing everything right, and if you're getting heavier, you're probably growing more muscle if you're doing everything right. But again, like, the community of bodybuilding sometimes and can be a source of Chinese whispers, and people take one sentence and take it way too literally, to the point that it becomes an extreme. So it's like, you have to get heavier. It's like, you don't have to get heavier. You have to lift more. You don't have to lift more. It's like, there's like, it's all about stimulus. It's not always just about stimulus. Like, there is always an argument to all these things, and you shouldn't be so super glued, and you shouldn't be so married to this one concept. That, like you said earlier on, there's so many ways to skin a cat, and from time to time as well, you actually will go through from beginner the whole way up to the end of your lifting career. You will go through so many of these different fads and processes and ways to do things. It'll blow your mind. You know, like, this could be the start of, like, you know, AJ said something to Emmett. This could be the start of Emmett's fucking meathead era, where he spends the next 6 months just being an absolute fucking head case. He'll still make progress. He'll still enjoy it. He may come back around to think, that could have been a wee bit better if I had done X, Y, and Z. But then he'll also just have a full loop where he'll come back to where he's the same way he's training right now and go, do you know what? I actually do need to start pushing hard again. And I always said it was like the Tony Hawk grindometer, of like that thing tilting back and forward and trying to keep it balanced in the middle so you can grind as far as you can. And that's the consistency we're looking for. It's like, you are going to tilt towards being a meathead. You are going to be tilting towards being optimal. And, you know, that can also have effect from the environment outside as well. You know, you could be having a really, really shit and stressful time, and you don't want to put more stress on yourself when you get into the gym. You just want to go in, go through the motions, enjoy lifting. That's great. There's also times where you haven't enough challenge in your life, and you need something that's going to fucking spark a bit of interest in your day-to-day life because everything outside is so monotonous and boring. Get into the gym and lift something really heavy. You'll fucking love it.
Amen. Couldn't have put it better there, mate.
Thank you, man. The 10 Monster seems to do something to my brain.
That was bang on. I think I agree with everything you said there, and yeah, it's just about finding the best approach for you. And if you never redline it, if you never like push things maybe a wee bit too hard, you're never gonna know where that line is that you probably shouldn't go to. Um, and you will end up finding the sweet spot between pushing hard and making sure that it's productive as well, and you're not burying yourself. But when you bury yourself, you'll know it as well. Like,
You ever there's some boys out there that genuinely talking about redlining it just remind me of a wee Honda Civic, and they're just fucking blipping it off a red line every single day, and fucking right, the engine never blows up, which is class. And then there's some more boys out there that are a wee shape Peugeot, and if you redline it once, it's fucked. It's broke. Some people are just built
that was
differently
me.
too.
That was me. My Peugeot, my first car, lasted me about a week.
You are the Peugeot. But yeah, there's just some people that are built for it. You know, look at the surroundings that we have right now, and that's it too. See, whenever you look at social media, there's the extremes make it to the top, and they're the things that have the most influence on us. Like, I love Keith West, but I'm not Keith West. I couldn't do what that comes down. It's just it.
Yeah.
Um, what are my other aspects of this actual topic? Coach, client, beginner. As a client as well is probably the best way to get the most out of your coach. It's probably the last sort of topic that I would have on this. Because if you're giving your coach no data at all, like, they're not going to be able to do anything for you.
Yeah, like adding maybe volume or swapping exercises and stuff because you don't know where they're at in specific movements. Yeah,
That's my
like
that's
that is
my
like,
sorry, that's my favorite part as a coach. You almost feel like a wizard, don't you? Whenever you just sort of like make a wee change, like the tiniest wee change of volume or like an exercise selection sort of change about, and everything starts flowing really well. You're like, I know what I'm doing. That works so well.
yeah. Again, like it's data. Data's fucking. I'm a big data guy. Like that is everything when it comes to the coaching as well. The more you have, again, like it always come back. It always comes down to you cannot manage what is not measured. So the more things that are measured, like the more like you control, and the more you can, um, just the better you can manage the process in general.
Yeah, I totally agree. Emmett, I think I'm happy enough for this topic today. I really have much more to say. You got anything else to add that maybe we haven't covered? What is he actually wanted to sort of delve into with Nikolov, actually?
It was just a logbook because I know he was big in on logging his session, so I just wanted to get his take on it because I know it was a hot topic in terms of it's a bit divisive. I think these days where people are like moving away from it because you obviously don't need it, but then it helps. So I just wanted to get his take on it and what he thought about it. If he'd move away from the logbook or if he logs all the sessions, it'd just be good to get his sort of take on it.
I think
But
that some of the people that are the biggest and strongest will always have a logbook. But again, just to go back to that Chinese whisper situation, like there's people that don't use the logbook anymore, but there's a reason for it. They don't just not use it because they don't think it's not useful. They've come to a point where they believe that. I think in bodybuilding it's more to do with like weight caps, your look, stuff like that, and the fact that it may be detrimental as an assisted athlete. But there is actually no natural athlete that I've seen come away from the logbook. Have you?
I don't know. Not sure.
No, I think it's always assisted, and I think the concept behind that is because with gear in place and tendons, ligaments, and joints and bones not progressing as fast as muscles do whenever it comes to bringing in assistance, there's a lot more chance of injury. And also, some people hit their weight caps, and it is a case that they probably don't need to make as much progress anymore, so they go in and train off of like stimulus. And it also probably takes like an aspect of stress away as well. Yeah, so it is very into like the art of bodybuilding at that back end. I don't really hear very much of people just coming away from the logbook altogether. I think it's just laziness, to be honest. Whenever I hear people coming away from the logbook, especially people that don't have a big reason for it, or other than like, I just want to train and not have to think about that. It's like, well, then you're being a wee bitch.
Very fair, mate. Yeah, it does depend on the person. I think like if there just needs to be there's always context to these things. Like, um, for me, like the more data you have, the more things, the more variables you have an insight into, the better you can manage things. That's my take. Like, if you can remove the emotional attachment, you're flying. Like I think that's what it comes down to. Just having the emotional maturity to be able to distinguish between it being the be all end all, because it's not like.
And I think the only thing that I push so heavily as well as a natural athlete is that when it comes to things like prep or deficits, especially, having the logbook in place is so important, because we only have a certain amount of tools in our toolkit to be able to actually obtain the look that we're looking for, which of course is going to be either to continue developing muscle at a slower rate and stripping back body fat. But if we are giving our body less resources to work with, and we're telling it to strip away body fat, whenever the one thing that it probably wants to do is get rid of the muscle, because it's so inefficient to actually have on the body. If anyone doesn't know us, here's just basic. This is very basic bodybuilding from a very low standpoint. That you should probably know is that your body doesn't really want to hold muscle. Doesn't want to hold muscle at all, because it's taxing it so heavily, especially whenever it's in such a high deficit. So you need to give it a reason, and this is where this comes from as well. You actually need to give your body a reason to hold the muscle, and this is where the logbook probably comes in the handiest, because if you're matching those reps and those weights every single week, then you're giving your body an adequate stimulus to actually hold on to the muscle, and you can just assume that the weight coming down on the scales is body fat.
I'm actually glad you mentioned like a diet sort of fat loss prep setting as well, because that's where like perceived effort will increase as well. Your desire to actually get it done may be diminishing, especially the deeper in you get to it. You're not enjoying your training as much. It's so easy then. Even if you absolutely love training, even if you train hard, to even like subconsciously take your foot off the gas a little bit, and if you're not logging it, then you've nothing to strive towards. So I think definitely when your judgment is a bit more skewed when you're dieting, and you don't want to push as hard, it definitely has its place there. I'd say more so than ever. But then on the flip side, in a surplus, when your recovery capacity is good, your desire, your motivation to train is going to be good, then double down on that as well, and like take the opportunity to be able to make good progressions. So like for me, like both scenarios, I think the logbook just makes every phase better. Um,
To
so yeah,
actually give people a perspective on this here from prep, especially, see, I think it was the MBFI and then the WMBF. So the common sort of practice is that if you're coming up leading into the show, you probably don't train your legs that week. And then what actually happened with me is I lost the week leading up to the MBFI not training legs, and then looking back on it, it's definitely something I'd change if I ever go into bodybuilding prep again. I competed in the MBFI. I went straight into the week leading up to the actual show for the WMBF. I didn't train legs again because I was told not to keep them fresh. And then, so I lost 2 weeks of training, And then I think it was 2 weeks after, we did the UKD FBA. So I had a week of training legs. The week leading up to the UKD FBA, I didn't train legs again. And then the week after, we went to Denmark. So the space of 5 weeks, I trained legs once. And no surprise, from the NBFI to the European show, my legs had gotten so small comparatively. It was ridiculous. And there was no bringing them back. Like, they were gone to the point where, like, you can see they lost the detail even to, like, glutes and stuff like that, because you know for a fact that my body just decided to go, fuck that, are we going to be keeping that muscle? Just get rid of it. So there's a perfect point.
Yeah. Before you would dive in, I was going to say, like, how was your training deep in the prep? Like, did it fall off a cliff? Were you able to, obviously up until that end point, maybe with the legs, was training still in a good spot? Were you like still holding on to sort of strength levels, and even maybe taking some progressions, or how was things sitting with regards to your actual logbook?
Yeah, I remember taking progress up until maybe taking quote unquote progress. You know, I'd kind of reset the log fresh coming into prep. Not like the point where I'd pulled everything right back, but maybe it dropped like 5 or 10 kilo on most exercises and just started them fresh. So that gave me a good runway. And then as I got deeper and deeper into prep, about week 20 is whenever I just started getting to actively match the sessions, and they were getting very taxing from a central nervous system point of view, because I was having to go like, not to make it sound so extreme, I was having to go to a really dark place a lot of the time to actually find the like motivation and discipline to actually get into them sets. Like, I remember being at the brink of tears getting into a set of deadlifts one day, like actually just having to get myself so emotionally worked up to actually go into it, that I was like, fucking hell, I can't wait till this prep is over. But yeah, so it went from a case of making slight progression to making no progress to the last maybe 6 weeks starting to see a decline. But I know that's a learning curve, and there should have been a lot more things in play there of like deloads, making sure that I was in a certain space with my health. Yeah, there could have been a lot more to actually fix those situations that I know now as a coach that would have been helpful. But all I knew is that, and most people know in their first prep is they want to work hard. So
Yeah.
it's not detrimental. It was actually a massive learning curve, and it's an experience that I wouldn't change, because it's made me a much better coach and a much better athlete because of being able to work hard.
So thought just occurred to me. I know I've been pro logbook here pretty much consistently throughout the discussion, but it just made me think there. If you're getting into sessions and prep, and your goal is to maintain, and then once you match reps, maybe you're happy enough. Is there a case to say if you weren't logging it using a logbook, you would maybe push a bit beyond that because you're not, do you know what I'm saying? Where you're not like attached to be like, right, I'm happy enough just calling it here, quits it, matching reps because I shouldn't be getting stronger. Whereas if you're not logging that, you're like, I'm gonna go until I can't go anymore, and that might end up surpassing it.
I believe that would be the case for someone's not inclined to make progress. For me, it was a case that like even matching those reps was hard.
Yeah.
I should have probably taken regressions, to be honest, and gotten more stimulus out of sets and stuff like that. But I was definitely married to the logbook quite hard. But it showed through my physique. I wasn't massive, but I was quite dense and grainy, which I think only comes from somebody that trains very, very hard and intensely. Something that we've touched on before with previous topics about like biomechanics and the way we actually set ourselves up for exercise is one of the big things that people don't realize from a perspective of prep and being in such a deep deficit and getting that lean, is that your body structure really does begin to alter and change, and you're going to actually have to start making adjustments to suit that. It's not always what people say about like taking away certain exercises that don't have as much external stability. It's more to do with like actually understanding what way your body's set up for example, one of the big things I actually remember was having to completely change my deadlift setup because my rib cage had gotten so compressed and small, and also my adductors, like there was no fat in between them, so I ended up having to take this very close stance, narrow grip to actually hinge because I had nothing to support like the femurs. I had nothing to really like pack against for my arms. I didn't even have like any sort of a gut to push off of like my upper leg when it came to the hinge. So all the points of contact that I previously had were completely missing. So I had to like create this like completely different like structure and hinge for myself that was able to move the same weight, which was good. But if I hadn't have changed that, I would say that I probably would have ended up injured very fast because there was nowhere near as much like bracing that was available. The point where like I was even wearing like, I remember putting on Rihanna's powerlifting belt, and Rihanna's a very small girl, and still having space in it, still having to put on like a hoodie to actually be able to brace because my waist has gotten that tiny.
It's good you were able to pick up on that though, to make that adjustment. Like most people wouldn't be able to have the intuition, I think, to make that call. Like I would say maybe for majority of people, even pulling that hip hinge out for maybe something that just has a bit more external stability or maybe fits the structure might have been better. But if you were able to adapt to it, and did it then, was it then still effective for you? You found
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah.
you
It was
made that
actually
swap?
much stronger. It's the same thing I always that we talk about when it comes to like the midline. It's just basic understanding of what you're actually doing as well that makes a massive difference in being able to do that there as an athlete too. Like I sat with the process of it being like, okay, well I just don't feel strong. There's something wrong here. It's like, okay, well let's like think of the logical effects of prep, less body fat. So that means I have less like touch points, less pressure in between joints, levers, mechanisms. I have less weight as well, so like how do we actually create and generate more force? I also have less surface area for things to attach to, so I need to start compacting everything way more. It's like, okay, well how do we compact things? We bring stances and grips tighter. Great, we can do that right away. And then on top of that there, I was thinking, okay, well like if we're gonna bring things tighter, it's how close can we get them to the mid lane, because the mid lane generates the most force, and that's gonna be the thing that's most adaptive. And you know, to put into perspective, using that hinge is a perfect example. My glutes were shredded, my hamstrings look good, my erectors looked like they had a six pack on them. So I think pulling that hinge out would have been detrimental to the look that was probably some of the more impressive parts of my physique. So you know, having those exercises that you're really good at and being able to keep them in, especially with pressing and stuff too, you know, not being able to open up the rib cage as well. I think this is where an understanding as well of like breathing is going to be massive, like being able to actually not allow that to happen. You see people that are really good at posing being able to do this as well, like Matthew Chapman for example. He has a very tiny waist, but he's also able to manipulate his rib cage so well to actually open it up to make himself look way bigger than he probably is. Whereas like our body's instant reaction and being in the deficit and getting leaner is going to be to make everything as small as possible, as compact as possible, bring it all in as tight as possible to ensure it's like it's safety. And again, it's just another aspect of bodybuilding that people don't realize. You're going against so many years of like evolution, trying to keep your rib cage open, trying to keep it big, and it more than likely carries over to his training too, to make sure that he's able to actually train way more intensely, better, more stimulus, and stay bigger. Don't know if that was a bit off track or not.
Nah, do you know what, mate? That was actually very interesting and a really good point. Like in consideration, and glad we actually you went on that tangent and we didn't wrap up before that, because that actually gives me a little bit of something to think about when I'm balls deep in the prep, and you know, rather than automatically falling out with an exercise or throwing the exercise in the bin and thinking the exercise is a problem, your body's actually changing like rapidly there, and that's where you maybe have to actually just adapt the actual specific exercise in the setup to where it actually suits you, because it's not what suited you at the start of prep might not necessarily suit you towards the end, because again I think you're carrying a lot less body fat. There's considerations there that you've brought up that majority of people wouldn't have thought of. I know I wouldn't have thought of that right away. It's probably something I wasn't really considering until you went on and said it. So it was a good point, man.
It's probably why a lot of people get injured too, and it's less to do with, well, like of course there's so much to play with hormones and stuff like that there and our ability to recover, but what happens if, like, for you, you've got actually got quite good legs. Jealous of them. Uh, but we can assume that there's body fat there in between joints, and it's going to be a protective agent. So you can squat to whatever depth right now. I could guarantee, Emmett, if we did this as a wee bit of a test, if you squat and check all the angles, so check the angle of your ankle joint, check the angle of your knee joint and your hip joint, give me the same measurements 5 weeks out. I can guarantee those joints are way more. There's a bigger degree of flexion at every single joint. So then, what happens automatically? You've lengthened muscles more. You're trying to keep the same weight, and you wonder why you get injured. It's like because you've actually gained a greater range of motion that your body's not adapted to yet.
Yeah.
Giving you a good couple things to think about here.
Definitely. Definitely. And that's why, again, like, I'm just thinking here, recording your sets throughout your entire process too, where you're able to maybe spot these things, or your coach is able to spot these things. Valuable, because if you're not recording it too, it can be harder to spot these things, and make that just guess or that change, just off intuition, or having to understand these things. Like, if you have something visual to give you a bit of a scope of, where you're going with it, I think that helps. That's where recording sets comes in handy as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that there. I think it's also just like we've talked about before, having a coach that actually walks the walk is going to be massive, because, like I've said to you, I've done many hours of in-person coaching, which has definitely been very helpful to carry over into my online. And sometimes you just know things without even without having to be told them,
Yeah.
which is invaluable. It is invaluable. And then also just being through prep and stuff myself and knowing these things, like I knew whenever it came to Coon's prep especially, like there were certain things that we just had to make changes to that were not going to be beneficial to him anymore, especially when it came to exercise selection and stuff like that there, and especially as a men's physique competitor too. Like, he was, we only have a certain amount in our tune kit, but we also only have a certain amount to give per week, and if it's better to give out there to the upper body as a men's physique competitor, then like putting back legs, for example, was completely fine. I've seen people doing that as well deep in the prep, like where they're still pushing their leg training really heavy as a men's physique competitor, and I think it's down to like the hard work that they have, and it's a great thing to actually still have in the tank. But sometimes you need to realize that it's not the logical approach. It's actually going to benefit the look on stage, and this is what we're looking at every single time, is that it doesn't matter what the fuck you can lift. Really, it's like when it comes to bodybuilding, it's the look you're going to bring to the stage. If me and you stand beside each other and you look better and you're more presented and you're fresher and the muscle bellies look fuller, who gives a fuck if I deadlift it more than you in prep?
So you shouldn't use Logbook in.
You should use Logbook so you can make logical changes.
No, I agree.
It's just it's measured data, like you say, and if you've got that data there, you can make those changes. Otherwise, you're just throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticks.
Again, like, on stage doesn't really matter what your logbook said you lifted. It just matters what muscle you have. But I think using that logbook as a tool, to make sure that you're training with enough intensity, and just to give you an idea of where you're at, and having a data point is helpful. And yet, before going for a wee focal and lay today, I would, based on our conversation, I would have it as TOS, which translates. What do you think it translates to, based on what we've spoken about?
TOS. Oh, it isn't cat piss anyway, like I thought it was. TOS is. I know. We talked about something to do with logging, so progression, something like that.
Measure. And if you want to hear if you want to hear the crux of what I've been talking about in Irish, ní féidir an rud nach toaster. Awana stew, which means what isn't measured can't be managed.
Gotta get that tattooed.
So am I.
Yeah, right in the forehead. Emmett, it is just that time again. Have a great night, mate, and I hope you have a good sleep. Enjoy your, or you know, don't have a creamy anymore. Don't be enjoying your creamy. Enjoy your salmon. Salmon, isn't it?
Right. So this is the thing. I have salmon, sourdough, egg, veg, and mango on a rest day for breakfast, but I have it in the evening now on the training day with just a bit more sourdough. It's great because it's my favourite meal. The only caveat to it is it's going to be my last meal on the training day, and then the following morning it's my first meal basically. So I had that this morning.
So
and
you
then,
better love it.
So creamies is just for rest days now. So, but I forgot to make my creamy last night. Well, they actually didn't have the almond milk, so I'm just gonna do a little whey paste instead of the creamy and have all the rest of the ingredients. So that's on the card here in about 2 minutes.
Mate, if you have time for it, even 5 minutes, whack the whey paste just into the freezer. It's a nice texture comes out of it. You'll like it.
Yeah, I will do.
Anyways, what? Have a great fucking day, and I will speak to you soon.
Yes, man. Have a good one, sir. See you all later. Slant.
Bye.